Well, I'm new in as head coach, and head coach of the academy, but I'm also not new in. I was assistant last year,
Yeah.
and I've been at the academy now for more years than I can actually count. Literally, watching me try to count that would be very painful, so let's not bother. But it I kind of had a sense of what we were doing right, and I'm part of the whole same vision for the academy. I took over from Martin Etheridge as the head coach, and I love the work he's done. And the idea and the vision for the academy and the Scimitars, it's important to always remember for them is that we sit at the top of the academy structure. So whereas other teams have different relationships with their academies, and sometimes that's a struggle, and sometimes it's beautiful, but always there's that kind of tension, sometimes productive, sometimes not. For us, we've got to see ourselves in that spot as the top team there. So the vision is consistent. It's just a question of implementation and how do we get to where we want to be with that team. So I have been around a long time. I've kind of followed kids up as well. So I started in tens, and I've almost got, as a coach, I've got the same progress as a player does. So arriving in NHL one, having done 10s, 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s, or whatever numbers when we switched over to odd numbers for a while, and here I am now. And so I think it's an interesting journey, and I think I arrived knowing here's what we do well, here's what I would fix if I had the chance, and now I have the chance. So it's more about tweaks and approach than it is a change in overall vision, really.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose last season was a little bit of a stinker in terms of how it went. How does that weigh on your mind going forward into this season, or have you completely disassociated with it and just look?
No, that's the thing. I mean, where we are is what we need to change is just the way we approach the game and the mindset. The talent's there. We're Sheffield Academy. We got lots of great players we can draw on, past and present. We got to bring some back, bring some new ones in, but the problem that's weighing on us right now is that what happened last year, I think, and that idea of we lose. It's a way of thinking, and I already this year I think I'm certainly going to make this point repeatedly, but we're way ahead of schedule where I thought we'd be in terms of talent and on ice performance, and that I couldn't be happier about. But then you see already, we've got. We like to joke we've already got twice the wins we had last year, but we've also blown other games we could have won. And I think what's happened is, and you can see this when I watch the games back, I can see it more profoundly, is we're in a lead. We've been in a lead, I think, already this season, more games than last. And I think we're playing well, but we get to a point where these teams, and it's not just us, these other teams, we lost the lead to Blackburn, we lost the lead to Hull. These are full of experienced, intelligent players that know how to say, okay, guys, come on, let's pull ourselves together and get going. And we're a very young team with a kind of experience of losing rather than winning and holding on to leads. And I think what's happened is we get to how you can't just flick a switch and say new team, new attitude. It takes time to get over it. And I think now we're starting to already say, hey guys, we've got a lead here. And it's and what's not okay already is for us to say we've got a lead. Oh, we lost the lead, but hey, we did well for a little while. No. Now you guys are good enough, and you've got to have that belief that we're good enough that we can start turning some of these noble defeats into W's. I think even a noble defeat versus an ugly win. I think I'd like to get some more ugly wins on the board. I think that's what we need to do, just for our own brains and to set up a culture. I talk a lot about culture and our expectations, and I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah, 100%. It's very interesting. It's like what you say. I think if you look at the league table, it's a bit misleading actually, because of obviously it's 2 wins overall, and you're bottom of the table, which I'm sure you don't want me to say that on the podcast, but the reality is
that's okay. It's the reality, right?
Yeah, I mean it's the reality, but it's also, I think it doesn't show the real scenario where you're going toe to toe with Blackburn. You've had a
that was a fun night.
I'll be honest with you. I was starting. I wasn't drinking, but I was thinking, am I reading these social media posts right here? Like, I couldn't believe it. It goes to show how far the team's come. Like a little bit of an exchange recently with Hull Jets. I mean, Hull Jets at the moment are taking huge scalps. It's huge. These sorts of little changes are the things there at the beginning of sort of whatever's coming. There's been a lot of change in the league itself with
Yeah,
Solway going, and it's upset the dynamic. I think it's for the better actually.
yeah.
How's it affected the league for you from your perspective?
Well, I think it's probably too soon to say how the league's falling out right now. It's early in the season. We're still in the first month, I think,
Yeah,
aren't we? A month and a half.
yeah,
And it's really interesting. I think you're right. I think Solway going. I mean, no disrespect to Solway, amazing team, but I think when you had one team that dominated, everybody else kind of fell into a line. There was a set hierarchy, and I think now it's almost like a Scrabble. There's lots of space to be had, and I think there's a lot more equality across the board. I think some of it is team movement, player movement. I mean, I think some players have moved around a lot, and I think some teams were expected to do very well have not done as well, and some teams are expected to not do so well are doing very well. I think that's kind of leveled everything out across the board. And it's too hard to say yet what the league itself looks like, but I think certainly that's made it more interesting. I do think in terms of performance, our league position isn't quite indicative of where we are. It would be nice to have a couple more points, but then that's the problem of not being able to finish. And when we learn to do that, I think we'll go up more. And it's nice to be competitive against all those teams to go into, whole Blackburn's a great example of we shocked ourselves in the first period. We came off and people were looking at us. Thought that's not the team talk I was planning to give. But then it's guys, we're doing the job better than we thought. And you're further ahead. Okay, now let's learn to do the next thing. And the next thing is seeing those games off and start getting some points. So Solway not being there has made it more interesting in a league, I think, for everybody. And I think there's been some other things of some of the top teams. There's nobody's moved in to replace Solway as the dominant team. And I also think from the bottom, some of us lower teams are pushing up. I mean, Nottingham's another good example that, they might not thank us for, but I mean, Sheffield and Nottingham are in that league in a similar position anyway, and that we're the top teams in academies. So we have a very different structure than, let's say, a team that's like the big draw in their community. Whereas we've got the Dogs and the Steelers, and they've got the Panthers, and so we're in a similar place in our markets, which are very big markets, though. And so I think we're coming up, and other teams aren't necessarily stepping up to replace Solway. So it has had that kind of evening out effect. So I think it's way more interesting this year in terms of league position.
Oh, definitely, yeah. You want to see a league where everyone can beat everyone, and it
Yeah,
certainly
yeah.
appears to be that way now.
That's a massive thing for me, and the way I think about things as well. That's a massive thing for UK hockey. It isn't
Yes,
just for the fans to enjoy it that there's not one dominant team, but I think that's what in this idea I have, that's what raises competitiveness of the players, and that's what really improves players as well. Is when games are more competitive, and you don't walk into a game thinking, well, we're going to like as often with junior teams. When are we going to mercy rule them? Is it going to be by the end of the first or halfway through the second? When there's a competitive game between two even teams and either team can make it, that means everybody has to play at their best. And I think that's what raises the level of play in general as well. So I think it's fantastic for British hockey.
yeah, 100%. Obviously, you mentioned Sheffield is a huge ice hockey city, really, for the UK. With various teams. I spoke with Jake Oakley from the Para Ice Hockey Steel Kings, and he spoke about the challenges that they faced in terms of kind of attracting fans and developing the club itself.
Mm.
Is it easy to develop that with you guys?
No, that's hard. It's strangely the harder part to do. It's almost, I mean, I thought that was going to be the easy part, and that
Yeah,
getting the players up was the harder part. It turns out, I mean, maybe this is just the players I've got, and we are gifted with a lot of really good hockey players, a lot of good youth. But the harder part is building everything else around the team, and the team performance has improved faster than I thought. This often happens. It seems to be the things that we think are hard are easy, and the things we think are easy are hard. But what I love about the Steel Kings is the way they've built a community over the
yeah,
years, and they've got a community around that team, and people love them. And it's always hard to get fans and bums and seats in any market, and especially a crowded ice hockey market like Sheffield is. But it's building that part of the community that I think uh, we almost neglected more than the on the ice side. And so that's easier to turn around. And like I said, we've got this great tradition of that in Sheffield, but it's trying to do. We're also in some ways emulating what the Steel Kings are trying to do with trying to build a fan base through social media and community engagement and just being out there and saying, "Hey, people, come look at us too." And it's hard, and it would be easier if we could say things like, "Come see us," because there's nothing else around. But they look and go, "Well, I'm going to go to the Steelers tonight," and okay, that's a good game too, I suppose. But showing that we have something to give that's unique, and then um, that's part of it, and giving people a good time. But then you do that on the back of a sense of community, so you make people feel like they're stakeholders in the team. They have something to give, and like I want it should be easy to do because we're the head team of an academy. So everybody in that academy should feel like we're their team. And that's what we need to work on a little bit, I think, just to make just show that pathway and that from tens all the way through. And we have guys in our team now that started at under tens at Sheffield, and make them feel that's part of what happened to our tens. And if they don't, maybe there's something else. Maybe guys join late or they come from somewhere else. But make everybody in the academy and everybody in Sheffield feel like somehow we're their team would be nice. And we're never going to get the gates that the Steelers get, but we don't need that. We do something different.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice just to have that, to build that community like the Steel Kings do. They do a really good job.
Yeah, definitely. With you obviously mentioning the academy as as part of the organization, you've been around for years working for various age groups. What do you think we need to see for the Sims, but also for wider youth level hockey in order to produce more talent? Because we're limited on facilities. Sheffield has probably
Yeah.
the best facilities in the country. What do we need to do, do you think, to improve?
Well, I'd say more facilities as well. So, Sheffield, we have these two pads, and I know Nottingham has two pads as well, and one of them is very big, and I know that they don't use it as much as they'd like, maybe. But more ice, because you see the example in Sheffield. We have two pads, and you think, wow, you couldn't possibly use all that ice. And yet, Sheffield is busy from 5 a.m. to I leave most nights at after midnight.
Well,
So that's my second job. Is I go to the rink after my day's work, and then I'm there for. Sometimes I can leave earlier. Last night I left at 10:30, but some nights there's uni hockey there as well that goes well past midnight a lot of the nights. And if you build it, they will come. So build more ice, and more people will come. Build more ice rinks, and more people will take up the sport. That's really helpful. And then I have this idea that what we really need in this country. I mean, we were always going to produce some gifted athletes that just kind of almost drop down out of the stars and come and play for us for a while. Then they get drafted and things. There's going to be one of that every once in a while. But what you really need to do is, for me, raise the level of competitiveness. So I grew up in Canada playing in a just north of Toronto, and I played at a decent level as a kid. When I was coaching under 11s, I went back and looked at the team I played for as under 11s, and this is in the Ontario League now. And I watched that team play in their first line versus my first line under 11s, and there wasn't that much of a difference. They were almost on par, and I was pretty good. And then I watched the second line come out, and their second line, this Canadian team, were almost as good, if not as good, unrecognizable from the first line, whereas the quality of my second line dropped. And then third line dropped again. It's not that my players were bad. The numbers dropped. I went from playing under 11s. I think my third line had under 8s on it because there just wasn't the numbers. And so when you have that competitive disadvantage, I think everybody just kind of it changes the way, when you spread the talent so thin, it changes the way you approach the game. And I think that's what kind of changes the culture of how we approach it. And I think the best thing to do is to raise the competitiveness. When the competitiveness is that every night you don't know who's going to win. And you have to know that if you're going to win this game, if you want to win this game, you've got to play the game at maximum intensity and in the right way, in a way that, not, oh, I'm going to Dixie dangle through five guys because I'm the best player on this team. We'll just rely on that one guy to get us 4 goals. Then that changes, I think, the complexion of the entire sport. And I think that's how you raise players and get more top talent coming in. So I think just more people playing and more competitive leagues. Now that the one is easy, you build rinks, which isn't so easy because it takes lots of money.
Yeah.
The other one is about how you structure leagues and what kind of competition you offer, I think.
Yeah, definitely. This is interesting kind of thing. When I've spoken to players who are from the UK but gone to play in Canada or the US, the one thing
Mm.
they mention, even players who've gone to Europe, a place like Hungary, it's the one thing that's clear is ice time is key. And
All
if we
right.
don't have the rinks,
Yeah.
you're not going to have the ice time, and that's the sad reality with it. Yeah, obviously, as well, you have the Sheffield Titans popping up as well in
Mm.
the NHL too. Where does that factor in? Do you think in terms of developing players and things like that? Is that part of a long term game plan,
Oh
or
yeah, yeah. So the Titans are really important for us. So we've got the junior setup, and we've got A and B teams at each level. We're not far off in some age groups to having C teams, and we have done in the past. I think that's important because there's no house league, so it'd be nice to have more, just getting more kids playing. And Sheffield's a big center. But the Titans are really important because they're the first stop for kids coming up into senior hockey. And yes, we have this thing. I'm trying to get people to think of it like this. We have, 18 B teams all the way through, but the Titans Sims are not an 18 B team situation.
yeah,
It's really at that point it becomes you've come through and you've gone through Sheffield and you're playing A's, and then you go Titans first. Get used to playing against adults.
yeah,
And then, if you, because it's a very different game, I think, juniors, but partly because of the talent spread thinly, and, the way you play games at juniors is naturally different anywhere. But when you have uh, two age groups and guys are playing, I think they play in a different way. That's a lot about um, how do I say it? It's less about the physicality and the systems and things. When you move into more adult playing uh, with seniors, then you have it becomes more about, as we say, kind of proper senior hockey. Now, what's weird is that I think there's a big difference right now between NIHL 2 and NIHL 1, because I think you've got more talent in the NHL one, some of the top teams there, so you have to learn to play differently again. But it's really important to have the Titans there as a kind of introduction to start playing this way and start with the extra physicality and learning to adapt your game to different scenarios. So for us, yeah, the Titans are really important. I'm really glad to see other teams are starting to bring in NIHL one, NIHL two teams as well. So you see Billingham this year. I've said we're bringing in the NIHL two team. Hull have done it as well. I'd like to see more places do it. I think that right all the way through is really important, and then you can develop more players that way as well. And it's more opportunities for the kids. So an NHL one team by Nate to be competitive at all, you need a certain level of player, which a kid who just turned 16 or 17 might not be ready for, but they can still play senior hockey and still move towards learning how to play that way at NHL too, because we have more spaces to offer players to play, and keep them interested, keep them rolling while they're young.
yeah, definitely. And one final kind of question. It's two questions, I suppose, merged together, and it's one of the ones I don't think anyone really likes to answer. Is what are you thinking about for the rest of this season? What are you hoping to achieve? And then going forward for the next few seasons, what are you hoping to see out of the Sims?
Oh, those are yeah, no, not necessarily want to answer those. No, no, I do. I'm very happy to answer those. I mean, I don't. I said at the start of the year too. I haven't put a number on it.
Yeah,
So people say, what's your ambition? What's your goal? And I, you don't know what the lead looks like. So I'm not saying, oh, well, we want to get X number of points, and numbers are a weird thing anyway, right? Like said, we can say now, hey, we're a month into the season, we already have twice the number of wins we did last year, which that sounds great. That's two though, so it's statistics are just another way of kind of fudging reality some ways.
yeah,
And like you said too, though, I think our league position doesn't necessarily tell the full story of how well we're playing. So I don't want to put a number on how many points we'll get, but there's two things really I'm focusing on, and one is just improving the culture around the team, if not the results yet. So to the point where we take a lead and we hold on to the lead,
yeah,
or we have a lead and we get scored against, or we don't. We get scored against in early in the game, and our heads don't drop, and we think, oh, here we go again. So changing that culture And knowing how well they're playing on ice, it's almost like I can bank that already.
Yeah.
That my first thing was I got to improve the performance and I improve the culture. I'm talking about the team right now. The performance is already so much better. So now it's really focused on the culture, trying to get their heads into. We train harder, we train faster, we keep our heads. We play more intelligently. We approach the game in a we can win this way rather than or how much we're trying to damage limitation way. So however, wherever we come in results, I'm thinking more about I'm going to judge it on how well we've made that journey to change the culture. And then when we bring kids in, the good thing about that is we're not bringing in kids or we're not bringing players from elsewhere and welcome to this club and their heads drop right away. They learn the winning attitude or that kind of that better mindset of how to approach the game in terms of confidence.
Yes.
Really, it's a confidence thing. The other thing I'm working on, and this is the longer term project, is trying to change. I say the culture, the infrastructure around the team. So we've got this Sheffield Academy, great academy. It's been really well run for a long time now, and there's a lot of things we really, really do well from that in terms of player development, player opportunities, play ups, and developing. We keep player recruitment. So that part of the infrastructure is really good. I think we need to spend a bit more time building the infrastructure around the senior teams now. So doing things like I go to other teams, I'm really inspired by what a lot of other clubs are doing, and that's something else. I think we have to look at other clubs and learn from them, and not be kind of like we're Sheffield, we're isolated, and we're big and everything else. That's all great, but there's other things we can learn from other clubs. And just building the infrastructure around a team and building that sense of community. So we have, people show up and they're excited every week for their the Sheffield Scims play, and not the numbers that the Steelers get, but that there are people there like that think that we're their team and they want to contribute, they want to build. That's a strategy that works through social media, through the academy, and just that's off ice stuff and more to do with me as a head coach, and I work with a lot of other people on that.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important. It's something I'm going to look at, not necessarily at the end of this season, but the start of next season. How far have we come? And then the start of the next season after that. And are the Scims really the team that are at the top of the academy and that have that place in terms of the development pathway, but also in terms of people's imaginations about where we are in terms of the culture of the whole club?
Yeah, definitely. Michael,
so they're very intangible things I can't put numbers on.
No, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very difficult to say, isn't it? Honestly, Michael, I want to say thank you so much for giving your time over on a Thursday morning.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm glad we were able to do it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, mate.